Calling meeting to order to meeting. Would you please stand with us for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening's consent agenda consists of the following items. A, approve of minutes. Approve the minutes of the following meetings. City Council work session, February 16th, 2021. City Council regular meeting, February 16th, 2021. B, Winsted Volunteer Fire Department Residency Policy Amendment. Amend the Winsted Volunteer Fire Department Personnel Policy to allow a member to reside or work in a location that allows for 8 minutes response time to the fire station. Last, claims. Approve the claims list for April 6, 2021. That is the consent agenda for this evening. I would like to call for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll motion to approve the huge consent agenda as presented.
He's got something I don't have. Mine's not huge. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
And approved. There is no public hearing tonight, no old business tonight. The new business item this evening is to consider a motion to approve the 2021 legislative platform. Mr. Burkholz.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. During the March 16th, 2021 City Council workshop, the Council reviewed several proposed positions for the recommended 2021 legislative platform for the current session of the Minnesota State Legislature. The platform requests specific actions from the legislature while also expressing the support or opposition of the City Council concerning possible legislative actions. Based on guidance provided during the retreat, City staff prepared and recommended adoption of the following platform. Number one, support for funding for non-municipal state aid city streets. So this is a request to provide additional funding for maintenance and improvements to city streets. Number two, support for local government aid and also increasing allotment of local government aid. Number three, support for state budget stability. And this would be to remove language or to add language essentially that would not allow for unallotment of previously allotted funds such as local government aid. Again, as part of our most recent budget cycle, there was large concern and extensive discussion regarding the possibility of unallotment. We don't believe cities should have to have that type of budget concerns with allotted funds. Number four, support for workforce housing. There are current grant opportunities to support workforce housing, and we're looking to strengthen those grant programs and add to those grant programs. And in fact, we are looking at one of those grant programs for a potential housing project here in Winsted coming up in 2021. And lastly, number five, support for growth management and annexation. This will be strengthening the annexation process and abilities for cities within the state of Minnesota. In order for the council to formally express the above-mentioned platform positions, city staff prepared individual council resolutions. These resolutions outline the current status of each issue and express both the general position and specific requests of the council. It's important to note that these particular positions do not advance or advocate any particular political party, but rather the individual policy requests or policy questions of concern to the council. Any reference to a political actors or parties are only designed to describe the current status of the given issues and not intended to express any partisan support. None of the 5 resolutions proposed for this evening will have any direct financial impact to our 2021 budget. So at this time, city staff is recommending adoption of said resolutions. Are there any questions for me at this?
Have we gotten any inkling regarding local government aid and what we will or will not get?
Right. They did certify the 2022 levels previously, and there is a slight increase from 2021. And right now, we're not aware of any reductions to those funds, or any changes to the formula used to calculate those funds moving forward. But those local government aid funds still have not reached the previous levels prior to the last financial downturn. So the League of Minnesota Cities, along with cities throughout Minnesota, are looking for legislative support to go back to the old funding levels where we were previously at.
Do you know and if, I don't want this to catch you off guard, but do you know dollar-wise what the difference is between the old funding and what we would currently get?
It would be in the tens of thousands of dollars versus, like $100,000. It's
Right.
approximately $20,000 would be the impact of the city of Winston.
Okay.
What's anticipated. Previously, city staff has ventured down to St. Paul with the mayor and a council member or two to present this platform to our local representatives. At this point, as we stand here this evening, I'm not recommending that. I do plan on having extensive phone discussions with our representatives to explain our platforms. If ultimately those discussions lead me to a position where I think that we need to venture down to the state capitol to further express our support for some of these positions, at that point I'll reach out to the city council and look for some volunteers to join me.
Adam, after the legislative session's over, can't we have, invite our representatives here?
I certainly think, yes, we could certainly do that if they want.
We could probably kill two birds with one stone then.
Sir.
Might be too late for this year.
But moving forward in subsequent years, that could be beneficial, absolutely. I'm getting more and more excited about, and I kind of mentioned it, about potential grant opportunities for workforce housing as well to help offset some of the infrastructure costs of that. So I really want to show our strong support for those programs as part of this resolution.
Yes.
Very excited.
Any other questions for Adam? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 legislative platform.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 legislative platform through the adoption of Resolution R-21-06 through R-21-10.
I have a motion. I have approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. This evening's department report. Winstead Police Department, Justin Held. Just the guy we wanted to talk to.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for having me. Oh, excuse me. So the last time I was here would have been November 4th of last year. Since then, for those of you who do not know, I just generally go down a month-by-month thing the police department does outside, or I guess above, responding to calls, conducting traffic enforcement. So in November, officers transitioned to laptop computers in the office. So the existing desktop computers could be repurposed by the city. It allows officers to work offsite if need be. The laptop is similar to what you as council and the mayor have. And it works really good. I can do what I do in my office, from my house, from the squad car, and it works well for the officers, especially when we had restrictions due to the pandemic. It made working offsite out of the city hall easier. We held annual reviews for our full-time police officers. Attended a meeting with City Administrator Burkholz and representatives from the City of Lester Prairie in regards to a plan to provide weekend emergency call coverage. December, Officer Traeger and Officer Vick attended rifle certification training. We participated in virtual training for the city's GIS program through Bolton and Menk. January 2nd, started the weekend emergency call coverage agreement with the City of Lester Prairie. I'll touch on that a little later, but if you recall, on weekends, some of the weekends per month, the Winston Police Department provides emergency call coverage for the City of Lester Prairie. On the other weekends, the City of Lester Prairie provides emergency coverage for our city. Officers attend quarterly medical training with the fire department. We do that 3 times a year. It's also known as a 44 plan. The last 2 have been virtual, which poses some challenges. It's nice to get together and train together. I would anticipate our May session to be in person. One note on that, we also switched to Crown College. They have staff that are providing that training for us in the fire department. It's our medical training. And it is also the same training that comes through our medical director, Kevin Sproul at Ridgeview. So it's a good transition to being trained exactly the way you would prefer. January, I also attended the City Council Goal Setting Retreat. February, participated in the Winston Elementary School I Love to Read Month virtually this year. So in years past, I have attended in person where they have fire department members, other members of the community. I know the ambassadors also come and we read. The kids come in their PJs, popcorn, and we read various books to them. This year is virtual, and actually all officers of our department participated in it. The body camera biennial audit was completed in February. I previously reported on that, on the findings. I then began a 6-week virtual training program with the Chiefs of Police Association. Again, this virtual thing, I'm sure you're used to that, but most of our trainings have turned to virtual. But it is good training, and it's nice to be able to do it when and where you can do it. March, officers attended the night firearms qualification shoot through the McLeod County Sheriff's Office, assisted with the Knights of Columbus Fish Fry at the Blue Note. Officer Lammers attended interview and interrogation training. Officer Traeger and Officer Vick attended virtual civil disputes and child custody training through the Minnesota Sheriff's Association. Officers attended a training session with Medical Director Kevin Sproul. Once a year, he comes out to the fire hall and he goes through standard procedures for a number of things we routinely encounter, and then it's also a good time to ask him questions on how he would like certain medical emergencies handled. So that's very beneficial for us to attend. Obtain quotes for the purchase and installation of the emergency generator, which we spoke about at the previous work session. I attended the virtual League of Minnesota Cities Loss Control Workshop Police Track. We try to do that every year. Last year, we do it in person. Last year, altogether, I believe, Raquel, was canceled completely.
Correct.
So this year was virtual. Posted for the hiring of a part-time police officer. I don't know if you've heard about that or saw in the journal, but we posted for that, I believe, maybe a week to 10 days ago now. It's open through the 12th of April. Hopefully, we'll get some good applicants. And so far this month, over and above what we normally do, attended the Easter egg hunt the chamber put on at Hanlon Park, which was very well attended. A beautiful day for it, and everything seemed to work seamlessly. I was going to touch on the emergency call coverage agreement with the city of Lester Prairie. So Winston calls, so that'd be calls that we have in Winston that a Lester Prairie police officer is responding to and handling. So since this began on January 2nd, Lester Prairie Police Department has came to 21 calls in the city of Winston. Now, if you flip that, so what calls is Winston responding to in Lester Prairie? We have responded to 6 calls in Lester Prairie during these shifts. As you know, calls come and go. There's no rhyme or reason to when they come or how they come. But this, and I can't speak for the Lester Prairie Police Chief, but what I see this agreement has done at this point, and there's obstacles that'll come, I know that, but it has boosted the morale of our night officers for sure, because it's important to keep in mind they are not taking call on the weekends. So I can speak for them on that. I've asked them about that. I've asked the other officer of the department too, and it seems to be going well, is probably the best way to put it. It also has increased the safety for our night officers. Again, it goes without saying, but when you work 12-hour shift and then you get called out 3 hours later, 4 hours later, there's a safety element there. So this has helped with that. But there's still an opportunity or possibility that that night officer would still be on call at some periods if for lack of coverage or for whatever reasons. There's also a slight cost savings that hasn't been calculated at this time, but I'm keeping track of all calls that we go to, that they go to, keeping copies of the reports. Sometimes there's follow-up that's needed, so if a Lester officer's in Winston, so this weekend, I think they were either here 4 or 6 times for Winston calls. One of those calls will be some follow-up, and that's anticipated. That'll be done by us. Most likely I'll take the follow-up on that. But that's been pretty minimal, but I think overall it's worked out well. While we're talking about that, is there any questions on that plan? Otherwise, I had some other things.
My question was, how is it going? And you answered it, obviously.
Yep, as of now, it's going well. Yep. 2020 PD report, hopefully that you got that or with this packet, I should say. So just a couple highlights, which I do normally. 2020, we had 26 accidents. That's down a few from 2019, but that's right in the ballpark. Last year, we had 10 DWIs total. We had 13 in 2019. Just want to touch on that. That's pretty low. I mean, you know, 10 DWIs is not a lot of DWIs, and Police Chief Henrich could account to that. I mean, there's years where we'd have 40, 50 DWIs, if not more than that, for a year, but that's not out of lack of effort. It is just something that I think has changed. You know, I think people are, you know, using the resources better, but it's still out there, you know, and we still.
Could it be as a result of COVID also?
COVID, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yes. I can only speak for my, you know, little corner of the universe in Winston. I like when there's a lot of vehicles parked on the street at 4 in the morning, because that means they make good decisions. You know, but that is definitely a possibility, because people weren't out, you know.
Well, bars were closed too.
Right, yeah, but alcohol sales were up.
Yeah. They were.
So, and that, I'll touch on that, but that is going hand in hand with another issue that we're seeing that is gonna create more of a issue down the road. Dog complaints 29, we had 58 in 2019. And really can't speak for why that is. Maybe some dogs no longer reside in our community that were habitual offenders, that could be a possibility. 33 physical arrests in 2020. Now that one is for sure COVID related. Now there were many other arrestable offenses, but per COVID guidelines, not everyone was arrested that normally would be arrested. You know, I'm not letting any secrets out of the bag there, but there were people we'd arrest normally that we were told we could not arrest. We are fully happy to arrest everyone now again. We've been told we got the green light, so we'll be arresting people as we have. But there's certain level of offenses, to elaborate a little bit, that, you know, maybe you're driving after withdrawal, so you don't have a valid driver's license. And unfortunately, you do that several times in a year. That is one instance where we were not arresting, we were giving a citation.
Maybe you're gonna touch on this, but over the last year, have domestics increased? Because people are home so much?
I can't say I've seen that happen.
Okay, good.
No, but I bet it's happening. We're just not getting called to it.
Okay.
I'll touch on it right now, like the child protection type stuff that they get involved in, and we get involved in that too. Those numbers went down quite a bit because the kids weren't in school, and one of our best eyes and ears for that is teachers, you know, school personnel. So there was a dip in that. There is some concern of what could come out of that down the road that we just don't know about.
Mhm.
And that would go with the domestic stuff too.
Okay.
They go sort of hand in hand. Last year, we issued 183 citations. We issued 663 warnings. 27 thefts were reported last year, and that's similar to years in the past. And we responded to 183 medicals. That's slightly up. Last, I'd say, probably 10 years or so, we've been right in that 165 to 185 mark. Mental health calls are on the rise. That I can, you know, I'm not gonna generally speak for law enforcement, but that's a fact, but I can speak for Winston. And we've had a lot of mental health calls in the last year. I think, you know, my opinion on, as a police chief, is that a lot of that is related to the effects of the pandemic. That's probably the best way to put that. And I just wanted to touch on that. So, a lot of times we are sort of like that last resource that gets called, and we get called to a lot of mental health calls, but there are other resources available. One of them is the McLeod County Mental Health Crisis Telephone Line. They partner with Carver County. These cards can be picked up at City Hall. Their phone number is 320-864-2713. They can be called anytime. I've heard good stories out of people calling them. People may not always want to call the police, but it's important to note that people should always feel comfortable calling us, because that is what we're here for. We will help you get to the next point, and it's better than the alternative.
Chief, if you don't mind
Yep.
interrupting, does our police officers have specific training to guide them through those type of calls with the mental health scenarios, or Are you comfortable with where you're at with that? or-
Yeah, so, yep, we receive training on that. We are not social workers, we are not counselors, we're not doctors, psychologists. We are asked to be them, but we're not, but we are trained in that. The officers are attending more training as more mandates come out. But these resources are very important, and it's important, you don't have to call the police department to get these resources, they're out there.
Now, when you say mental health, what kinds of things?
It could be a number of things. It could be actually diagnosed mental health, schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, anxiety. It could be calls related to that. It could be suicidal calls. It could be people that are family that are concerned because there's just some things that have been happening.
Mhm.
And there's people that drug and alcohol induced mental health issues that sort of, I mentioned, they go hand in hand. They sort of bring those things out. Sometimes when people are thinking they're feeling good because they're doing something else, they're not taking their medicine, and then it sort of spirals out of control.
Okay.
Winston Elementary traffic, I wanted to note, I'm sure you've discussed it at previous meetings, but there's some construction going on by the school. 4th Street in Albert, and that corner was closed today, probably will be for a while. But due to all kinds of reasons, the kiddos get picked up and dropped off differently. So I just wanted the public to know, please use caution driving that area. Just last week, I had right as the kids are going out, somebody blew right through the stop sign, and I educated them properly, but it only takes one time.
Yes.
And then we don't want to be in that situation. So please use caution around the school, and that goes for Holy Trinity too. The kids get out, they cross to go to the park, they get picked up by the bus there. Just use caution, please. We've resumed, this is for the council, we resume our monthly totals. So you should be seeing them. If you have any questions, please let me know. I was gonna touch on the fraud calls just because it sort of seems like a broken record, but you wouldn't think 3-4 years ago we could have more fraud calls than we're getting, but every year they just increase. Publishers Clearinghouse, Social Security. When I say Social Security, the common one that we've been seeing is your card has been used or your number's been used in Texas. It's cocaine related. Sheriff's office coming to arrest you. Right? First of all, the sheriff's office or the police department will not call you when we're coming to arrest you. It doesn't happen like that. But it's important, we can laugh about it, but there's people that are giving these people money and information, and they're losing that. We cannot get it back for you, and we won't get it back for you. It's the truth. The Wells Fargo one, I've actually been off for a couple days. But, one of my officers let me know about this. Somebody received a Wells Fargo letter in the mail. They were requesting information. It looked legit as it gets, but it was not. So just be very cautious of what you're reading. I wouldn't be giving out any information. Personally, I give out no information. Unless I volunteer it because I need to. You know what I mean? If somebody's asking you for it, you should really think twice about why do they want it. Don't give it out. It's not worth it. Call us. Like let's say the Wells Fargo one, or I bank locally. So if I got a letter like that and I'm like, well, why are they asking? I might just go into the bank. You got a bank statement from Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank, Citibank, whatever it is. Call the trusted number you have. Don't call the number in the letter. Again, if you didn't sign up to win anything, you're not going to win anything. We can laugh about it, but we have people that give lots of money.
Yeah, vulnerable adults,
And young adults.
really.
Yeah, yep. So I just wanted to touch on that, and as I was sitting here, you saw me reach my phone, scam likely. I get those calls all the time as well. Needle Disposal Day, I'll just touch on this because it came across my desk, but Glencoe Regional Health Service, or the hospital in Glencoe, on May 11th between 1 and 4 has a needle disposal day. It's just important to note that because we have a take it to the box, which gets used a lot here at the City Hall. Needles cannot go in that box. And there's always a question, well, where do the needles go? This is an opportunity to get rid of those needles. I would contact them for more information. In 2020, and I didn't touch on this in November, but we did install an eye washing station and a flammable materials cabinet in the PD garage. City maintenance helped with that. And I just wanted to mention that our officers are doing great. Officer Vick, Officer Traeger, and Officer Lammers. and we are very lucky to have them here. So just wanted to touch.
We're lucky to have you too.
Thank you. Lastly, winter parking ban is over, but we should remind everyone that our 72-hour limit, our ordinance change for the parking of trailers, boats, campers, et cetera, on the streets is in effect as of January 1st. And then a bicycle rodeo is currently scheduled for May 6th at 6 p.m. at the Winston Elementary School. And we're just going to touch base with them yet on the construction, but as of now, that is when it'll be. If there's a change to that, we'll work with the city website and the journal to get that out. Any questions?
I have one. The last 3 meetings I've been at the fire department, there's also a police officer.
Right.
Is that new, old?
Nope, that was in effect when Chief Henrich was here. The request would be, when available, that an officer attend.
And I want to thank you for ceasing my Publishers Clearinghouse for a Mercedes and $5,000 a week. That was very nice of you.
I don't think I had much of a role in it, but I'll take the compliment. Thank you.
Justin, on your report, you have that your department responded to 25 alarms. Were those false alarms, most?
Yep, without looking at it, is that burglary alarm?
Yeah, it says alarms of burglary, 25.
So I would say that the vast majority of those are false.
And then what is civil standby?
So it could be any time somebody doesn't feel comfortable, generally it's exchanging property.
Okay.
Or let's say there was a domestic incident and somebody needs to get something from a house, their house.
Got it.
And we'll go there as, to keep the peace. There are times we do also, you know, let's say somebody just doesn't feel comfortable at work, or an employer doesn't feel comfortable with the termination of an employee. We'll be in the area.
Okay.
Justin, could you tell the council what kind of impact COVID had on your department this year? Starting with the very first time that group met and had no idea what was next?
I think it was similar to what everyone else went through, honestly. And what we may go through it is just, you know, the unknown. You know, the primary responsibility of the police department is to provide services to keep people safe, you know, and just sort of to feel our way through that. Like I said, I think we all went through it the same. You know, you got to feel your way through it. There was some probably anxiety at the onset. And then the PPE, you know, that was a whole deal. You know, we ended up going with cloth masks, which were a good stopgap until we could move forward. But changes that we made, you know, will help us down the road. You know, like for meetings, for example, I'm a firm believer in the more meetings we can do virtually, the better, because I'm the only one working during the day in Winston. I do not want to be going out of town to go to these meetings if I don't have to. Virtually, it's wonderful. The other things with the pandemic, you know, the calls were different, you know, how we handled the calls. I think, you know, if I would have to venture a guess, we are 98% back to just like we were prior to that. Obviously using more precautions, wearing our masks when dealing with the public, stuff like that. But, you know, people's fuses got short. That's the best way to put it, you know, and rightfully so, I guess. You know, there's a lot of changes for a lot of people.
I think one thing that the city benefited from is that we've been through it now, and our way to handle things in the future, we've got something to fall back on now, where before we have to fill in the blanks.
Right.
So we'll be better prepared for whatever comes next, and there will be more.
In the meetings we had early, I think were great, because what we found out is that, you know, it wasn't impacting us at that time, but it laid the groundwork, like you said, for what was to come or what could come, so.
Any other questions for,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
thanks, Justin. All right, we have come to the open forum meeting. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to come up and speak to us about anything, please do so. I would ask that you would speak loudly, give us your name and address. I don't ask for age.
72.
Mary Beth Berkman, 135 Fairlawn Avenue East. First, I want to say thanks to Adam for letting us use the fish dumping site. Finding us a fish dumping site. I want to preface, I don't have any prepared remarks, obviously, but I want to say that I'm a firstborn type A fixer. And my husband and our neighbor hauled, they stopped counting at 300 dead carp the first time. We got a bigger trailer and filled that. He buried 17 of them yesterday on our beach, and there's about that many more that floated up with the south wind. I went to the dam today and took pictures. I don't know if any of you have been there. It's bad. Between me and everybody else around me, we've called the DNR, and I mean, I guess I'm starting at the top here. Who owns the lake and where do we start? Because most of the lake the shoreline is not owned by people that are living there. How can I put this? There's not a house there to pick up whatever's there. The dam, I don't know who's responsible for that. It's really bad. Is there a way to organize this citizenry? I don't know. Somebody called City Hall and said, what do we do? And they said, call the Lake Association. And I'm like, wait, I don't think that's our job. But is there anything in place? This is the first time we've really dealt with this since Tom and I have been here since 2012. Do any of you live on the lake? Do you know what I'm talking about? No?
Well, if I could start here, Mary Beth, we're certainly aware of the issue of the fish kill in the lake. And like you said, we, as a staff, we work to provide a location for residents to at least dump, the dead fish, for lack of better terms. Other than that, in terms of who owns the lake or who's responsible for the lake, that is the Department of Natural Resources. The city of Winston does not regulate the lake. In terms of responding to emergency response on that's McLeod County even at that point. We do not have regulation control over the lake or any jurisdiction on it. So that is the Department of Natural Resources.
They said it's not their problem.
Right. Well, they said it's not their jurisdiction. It's not their problem. I mean, there's two different things there. I'm assuming that what they said is that, that's Mother Nature, and Mother Nature will take care of itself in terms of how it'll get cleaned up with varmints, animals, decaying, etc.
They said if we clean up Winston, we have to clean up all the lakes, and we never stop. Basically, we're just washing our hands of it.
That they don't respond to those type of issues, essentially.
Just if we do that for you, then we have to do it for everybody.
Right.
I think the DNR's response is time, and time will take care of the problem, which doesn't help today,
Time, though, I mean, our lake is already polluted, if you want to put it that way.
Mm.
To have, I don't even want to think about how many dead carp are down there decaying.
I think, George, you had mentioned about a third aerator.
Yes, that we're gonna put in this fall.
Are there two of them out there now? Oh, that's a rapid trail that I would like to go down. Is it not working right now?
Oh, yeah, it's on.
Because we don't see any bubbles going up.
Well, I was looking at it yesterday and there were
Were ya?
bubbles going up.
Okay. Okay, because when the lake was like glass, there was nothing happening up there.
Because this aeration is new to this lake.
Yeah.
And that's why believe it or not, I come back down here maybe once, twice a day, and it's humming right along. And we don't know if we put the third in, if it's gonna promote anything different than what takes place. I will tell you, Mary Beth, that I have spoken to the Department of Natural Resources once a day for 6 days. And the gentleman has been very kind on the telephone without calling me a nasty name. But he said, George, he said, if we started doing that, I would not be able to hire enough people to take care of it. We do not touch the dead fish on the lake. Mother Nature does what she's supposed to do, and we leave it at that, so. And that's their comment to me, so.
So I guess, is this, nobody's cleaning up the dam? There was a pile of them that somebody had hauled out, maybe a half a dozen of them. And there was easily 3 dozen in the water that were dead. I don't know who's taking care of that, or is that just up to individuals to go to?
Yeah, that could happen.
I think Mother Nature will take care of the issue, is what we're being told by the DNR. We're not gonna get support from the DNR on it. So I'm not sure what you're suggesting in terms of who should
Anything I'm
do it,
asking, if
but.
there's anything that, I'm just a citizen, is there anything?
Right. I think it's, anybody can go and take care of it, and we have the dumping spot. I mean, if you guys decide, if you have a group of people, of your friends or volunteers that are willing to go to the dam and scoop up the dead fish and put them in a trailer, we can certainly dump them at the location that we're offering.
My husband has a bad back and our neighbor can hardly walk, but his knees are so bad. And I
Certainly.
said, you guys should put an ad out and say for $100 an hour, we'll come and clean up your mess. And they're like, no, we can hardly take care of our own. So the answer is that there's not a group of people that's already removing stuff from the dam. And
Not that I'm aware of. If the Lake Association isn't actively doing that type of activity, because they don't report to us specifically, I'm not aware of anybody that's called me and stated that they're willing to do that.
all right, well, I thought I'd start at the top and see if anybody was, I didn't want to get in where somebody else was already doing something,
Sure.
so.
Right. And again, that might be a better question for Lake Association in terms of just, maybe they already are actively trying to recruit a group to do that. You know, I can't speak for them or where they're at.
Do you know?
No, I do not.
Have they had any meetings this year? Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you. If there is no one else, we will move on to the administrative update.
Sure. We have a couple items this evening. A note for the residents that the brush site will be opening for the season on April 10th. That is this Saturday from the typical Saturday hours of 9 to 1. And then here on out, it'll be every Saturday and Wednesday. The Wednesday hours are from 4 to dark. A note from a planning and zoning perspective, we have a public hearing scheduled for April 12th regarding the rezoning of the southernmost parcel here in Winsted from its current residential R1 to a requested ag district. And we have a second public hearing regarding a variance request at 591 Main Avenue. The variance request pertains to lot coverage. The current lot coverage that's allowed is 75%, and the applicant is proposing a 76% lot coverage, so just slightly over the allotted, as well as a variance regarding the parking setback. The current setback requirements are 10 feet for parking, and the proposal is for 5 feet. And then lastly, the city staff, or as of April 5th, the city of Winston is no longer contracting out the services for utility location. At this point, when any resident or business calls Gopher State 1 to do a dig, the utilities that are city-owned will be located by city staff moving forward. So we have made that transition. We will start to realize the cost savings now as of April 5th in that activity. So that's exciting news. That's all I have this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Michael, any questions to him?
I do not.
Bonnie? Steve?
Nope.
Tom?
Yeah, maybe you could extend a hand to our new county commissioner and ask him just to stop in and introduce himself. and-
He is scheduled as part of our schedule with scheduled reports. I think
Okay.
it's in May is when he's scheduled to come and visit.
Perfect. Perfect. And then the only other question I had, Adam, was on this people service report,
Sure.
phosphorus effluent.
Yep.
And maybe they could answer this or just let you know why it was so high in October.
Yeah, I don't know the detail of why that was over the limits. Now, it meets the rolling average is what I was told, because I had a similar question. I don't recall what their answer was, why specifically that month they're over. But they are scheduled to report in May, so I'll write myself a note and we can
Okay.
maybe address it in May.
Any other questions? I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.